the GAPS nutritional protocol is that we are building the gut first. So we really emphasize what's going to heal the gut and build the body and build the brain and build the immune system. So it does have a lot of emphasis on animal fats. It does have a lot of emphasis on meat close to the bone. We do bring in fermented foods. And so for someone who's never done those foods before, it might feel different or intimidating.
All right. Hey, mamas. Now, starting solids can feel way more confusing than it should, right? We've got purees, baby led weaning, 100 foods before one, allergens, meat stock, gaps. It's so overwhelming at times. No wonder why moms just feel like they're already doing it wrong before they even start. So now I recently posted on Instagram about what I'm feeding my fourth baby, Revy, and the questions just pour in. Every day I'm getting more and more questions. Mom wants to know where to start, right? They want to know what to feed first, how to do it safely, and how to just make this whole process less overwhelming. Now with Revy, I decided to do the GAPS approach to starting solids, but I didn't do this with all four of my babies, okay? My third baby was struggling with eczema. And when I was pregnant with my fourth baby, I wanted to learn everything I could, get my hands on how to support his gut and his immune system from the get-go, right from the start. And I wanted to hopefully avoid what happened with my third happen with him. And this is why I chose the GAPS approach. And this is actually how I found Kate. So Kate Pope is a GAPS certified practitioner. She's the founder of Wild Nutritionist. Okay, you can find her on Instagram. She's a great page at Wild Nutritionist. And today, Kate is going to help us simplify starting solids and understand what does this GAPS approach mean and what first foods are less intimidating and really why we want to start with those, okay? Now, also stay tuned because after this interview airs, I'm going to release a solo episode where I walk you through exactly what I'm feeding Revy day to day and also week by week, just starting him off, just so you know like what it looks like day to day in our home. Now, Kate, I am truly so excited you're here because there are just so many mixed messages around starting solids. So maybe we can start off with just asking like, where does someone begin?
Where do we begin? So well, for me, the first food was meat stock. And when I started my son on solids, I was just really excited to start using the GAPS nutritional protocol because I had used it myself. And so I knew what foods healed the gut. And my son was born by cesarean. And so I knew that the mainstream way of starting solids just wasn't going to work for him. And in fact, it really didn't make sense for many babies. When I thought through what heals the gut, what builds the immune system, I was like, actually, all babies need this regardless of how they're born. And so I started to talk about let's get some meat stock in our children to build their gut and to prepare their body for many more foods that will come after that.
Okay, I love that. So let's just first talk about meat stock. When I first started learning about this, I was like, oh, it's bone broth. That makes total sense. Like we've learned about bone broth and it's rich in collagen. I'll just have bone broth. But then I learned from you. I was like, this is totally different. So what is meat stock and how does it differ than bone broth?
Yes, perfect question. So, meat stock versus bone broth, both are healing foods. Both can have a role in a healthy kitchen. But we start with meat stock and we emphasize meat stock for healing because it's always made from a raw piece of meat with a joint in it. So, you're essentially cooking this meat for a short period of time to extract the nutrients, kind of, I like to say, melt them into your stock so that you're getting this really bioavailable, which means you can digest it easily. You're getting this very bioavailable food that's soothing and nourishing for the gut lining. Bone broth, now typically bone broth is made without a lot of meat. It's mostly bones, sometimes leftover bones, and it's cooked for a much longer time with the goal of extracting minerals. And so we're not really into meat stock for the minerals, although it is mineral rich. We're really into meat stock for the collagen, for the gelatin, for the building capacity, for that meat and protein that we're getting versus bone broth, which is more a goal of extracting minerals, and it can be nourishing, but not yet for babies.
Can I just tell you, I think meat stock is so much easier to make and it's more efficient. So first of all, I do a lot of batch cooking, we prep, but it's done so much quicker and I get meat off of it. It's so much easier and I love it. And you see the jelly, right?
Yeah.
Like at the end when you cool it, you see that jelly. You don't always see that in bone broth.
Right. That's why I tell
Yeah.
moms it's easier to cook, it tastes better, and you have more food. Like it's more of a
Yeah.
meal, whereas the bone broth, it wouldn't be counting as a meal. But a meat stock can be, you have the meat, you have the vegetables that are cooked in the stock, you have the stock itself, and that is the meal. Like everywhere we go, we make meat stock. There are foods that no matter where we are, we have, which is kvass, kefir, and meat stock. everywhere we
Okay.
go.
I love that. And we will talk about those ferments. I love that. But I just think as far as meat stock, as the first food for baby, never did I consider that for my first three kids. It wasn't even, it was like avocado, or like a sweet potato or something mushy, right? It never dawned on me until I learned about the GAPS approach.
Yeah, and like healing soup, really, it's so wonderful. I feel like it would have been a food that would have been very obvious ancestrally, like because they were using the whole animal, right? And so they had large cuts of meat that they were slow cooking, and then they had a broth, a liquid byproduct, and really soft collagenous meat. So once we give meat stock, the next step is, soft collagenous meats. And so it's just basically what I love about it is it's this bridge, right? So we start with the stock, it soothes the gut, it prepares the gut lining, it can heal the gut, it can rebuild tissue, which is amazing. That's something very different. Bone broth can't rebuild tissue, meat stock can. And so what that means is that it can actually have turnover in your body, like our cells regenerate. So your baby's body is growing at a rapid pace. You're giving the input of really healthy building blocks, essentially, right? That's what meat stock does. And then, like I said, it just prepares for all these other foods. And it's a beautiful food for children to return to because the first food is quite an imprint for them. And
Oh,
so
I love that.
yeah, when we're imprinting this health, this soothing, this warmth, right? We all know chicken soup for the soul, right? We all get that we go to that for comfort. And so when we start babies there, it's just so, yeah, like I don't know. It's like this big sigh of relief for me because I'm like, yes, I'm giving you what you need and what's going to just warm and nourish you.
I love that. So I just actually want to do like a quick physiology, I guess, for the listeners is like a baby in its infancy doesn't actually have a mature gut. All right. It matures over time, which is why we can't even introduce solids right away. I mean, and you have to introduce solids slowly, right? Because you're still maturing. Breast milk and or formula has to be the primary food for that baby for the first year. When you're starting to give some foods, it's in small amounts. You're testing things out. You're getting them like ready because again, their gut lining is still so immature. So why not? If we're only giving a little bit, you're giving the most nutrient dense because you only have so much room in their little guts to give. Why not give something that is soothing to the gut that helps really prepare that gut, line that gut, and that's nutrient dense versus just like a food that they could just mash in their mouth just because. Now, exploration and texture and all that is all very important. We'll go into that. But as far as the first single foods, when I read and learned and really researched about meat stock, it just made sense to me. Like a light bulb just went off. Why isn't this more talked about? Like, why aren't we doing this? This is so great and so rich in information. And so I am such a believer now. And I realize that if I just batch create a little bit at a time and freeze it in my freezer and pop them out, I have all of this great food ready to go. And it's so easy for me.
Yes,
it was
exactly.
great.
And like I would do this a lot with my baby, like in between nursing, because I extend breastfeed. So I breastfeed for a long time with my kids, but I never saw an interference or a stop of wanting breast milk because they were having stock. In fact, it was like the two were working together so beautifully. And it can be the same with formula too. So adding in meat stock is going to help the gut heal. It's going to support the appetite. It's going to basically like robust out your baby a little bit more. And in terms of like a supplement for your breast milk, this is a really awesome option. I think I see starting solids in the gut health way as a way to support moms postpartum, right? Because when you're giving your baby nutrient dense foods that their bodies can use, just like the robustness of your breast milk, you're actually giving yourself a break, right? And that doesn't mean you breastfeed less. It means that your baby is getting more of what they need from food as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about adults for a second because as you're making meat stock for a baby, your whole family could benefit from it. And I actually want to mention, I learned about GAPS. I don't know if I was in school or right after because I was really interested in Weston Price and just all sorts of different approaches. I've always loved nutrition and I've always learned about GAPS to help heal leaky gut. That's how I've always thought like, oh, you can refer to a GAPS practitioner. I always thought it was too extreme for the general population. And I had to just kind of say, well, too bad. If you want to use food first, do the GAPS, you're going to get an amazing healed gut. But so many people were intimidated by it. It felt too overwhelming. It felt too restrictive. But for a baby starting solids, you're in full control. And an adult, it's hard to get in. You're already wanting your stuff. You're going to miss your starches. You're going to miss your grains, whatever. But with a baby, it's like the perfect time because you're already in control. They're not picky. They're not really that selective. They're just kind of going with it. You're trying all these new tastes. It's like the perfect time.
Yeah.
And the perfect individual to do it with. And if I can just get this into my toddler and my husband and my kids, then that's just like a bonus. And I do now. I serve it a lot more because, again, it's just now part of my flow. But to give this to your baby, it's just, I wish everyone could just do it. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure to know adults can do this too completely and get benefit.
They should. I teach the mama baby biome. So I teach that mom and baby are intricately connected. And this was sort of like my process coming out of doing the GAPS diet. My husband and I both did the GAPS diet before we conceived. And then I had the cesarean birth, which meant a hospital birth. It wasn't my plan. Antibiotics, the hospital drugs, those kinds of things. And so I knew that the path forward was more healing and more building. What I didn't expect was that when I started to talk about this, so many people would relate to that scenario and say like, oh my gosh, me too. How do I help my baby heal? And so it is absolutely for those scenarios where your baby's had symptoms while breastfeeding, your baby had antibiotics in birth or in pregnancy, you had a cesarean birth where antibiotics were used. So it is a rebuilding protocol, but it's also a place where anyone can start, even with a super healthy baby, right? Because you're just progressing that health forward. You're just really setting up the gut, the palate, everything. I talk about that a ton. Like you're shaping your child's palate. And really that's where the 100 Foods Before One became so popular. The idea is like you add in all this diversity, you kind of hit them crazy with diversity, and they are able to eat tons of foods because of that. But I really consider it more like, let's go for 100 trillion microbes. Let's focus on the gut microbiome because that shapes the foods that kids crave. And when we do that and when we start them on these really unique, foods like liver and meat stock and bone marrow, they are then on a cellular level knowing that's their home base, that's their safety, that's their nourishment, and they will come back to that again and again as they grow. And that's the most rewarding part for me because now my son's 4 and he wakes up in the morning and says, can I have soup? And so it's just so powerful to have that as his first food. And for him now as a growing boy, he just knows what he needs. I love it. It's amazing.
Well, it's really fun following you on Instagram to see what your kids are eating, right? Because that's what you're living this life. That's how I love it. I love sharing my life and just seeing what it is to inspire. All right. I don't even think we've defined GAPS. And I'm so sorry. I kind of jumped ahead. Just maybe for moms who've never even heard of this, like what does it stand for? What is this all about?
So GAPS is an acronym. It stands for Gut and Psychology Syndrome or Gut and Physiology Syndrome. And essentially it connects all health or disease back to the gut. It was created by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. She was working as a neurosurgeon at the time. Her son got an autism diagnosis. No one in her field could help her. So she went back and got a master's in nutrition and she developed the GAPS nutritional protocol. Very phenomenal. She reversed her son's symptoms. He does not live with any symptoms anymore. It's a very popular protocol actually internationally. I've done a lot of work to popularize it and bring it to the mainstream because really it's our return to the foods that heal. It's a return to our local ecosystems, to our gut microbiomes, and it's just really, really powerful.
Gosh, talk about a super mom.
Right.
Like my child's having an issue, so I'm going to go back to school, figure this out, and create like an entire internationally recognized nutrition plan.
Yes.
Amazing. And what does it take to become a practitioner? Like, I'm just curious, a GAPS certified practitioner. Is there a schooling?
Yeah, exactly. So in order to be a GAPS practitioner, you have to have some sort of medical background. So, acupuncturist, a doctor, a naturopath, or you can have a nutrition background as well. So I was a functional nutritional therapy practitioner. And actually, just like you, I heard about GAPS in school and I was like, well, that can't be for me. I was intimidated by it too. And then here I am circling back in 2020. I reached out to Dr. Natasha and she was like starting a training the next week. And so I jumped in there and, my life has been better ever since. Nutrition's wonderful. I love studying nutrition, learning about the body, and then really going in with the healing foods. Like I am a serious food first nutritionist.
Yeah.
Work in with the foods, especially with babies, because our bodies are designed to digest food. That is what they need. People always want to jump. Like there must be something extra. There must be something, a supplement, a thing I could be doing. It's like, no, mom, bring it back to the basics, slow down, get in the sun and eat food.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I can totally see myself like going to get this certification because I'm like you. I've always felt like food first is always the way to go. Now, with that said, there are a lot of people's lifestyles that are like, this isn't going to work for me, or I send my kid to school and they get hot lunch, or how am I going to do this with the birthday party? And wherever you are in that season, you are. Like, if you're so passionate about doing food first, you make it happen. And if you're not in that season where food first is everything you can do, maybe you do little bits. And maybe, yes, you need some supplements along the way and you need some other support. But we're just going to share with you kind of like our passions and what works for us. And if you can start your baby with this, amazing. And if you can't, look, I have 3 kids who did not start like this, and I feel like they're healthy and doing great. And so there's something for everyone. But now with this approach, I love that if there's seasons that kids are just getting sick more or I'm depleted, at least I know which foods to lean on to then help repair. Because I'm a big believer in that and I love using foods first. And I do think the GAPS approach is just such a smart way to do it. And again, once you get the basics down, it really just becomes like part of your life. So maybe let's start off with, we talked about meat stock. The biggest question I'm always asked is, how do you serve it? How do you actually give it to your baby and or your family? So let's just break that down because everyone asks that question.
Yes, great question. So, meat stock is a healing broth. So, you're going to have it as a liquid form, or when it's cold in the fridge, it's going to be jelly. And something like you might have seen or heard online, jelly stock, babies eating like little gelatin meat jelly, right? That's what I put forward because my son, I was like, well, let me just see if he'll take it this way, So that was a way for him to use his fingers, pick it up himself, and put it in his mouth. And that was a great option. Other thing I did was open cup feeding. So I just started giving it to him in the cup. I think first was a spoon. So I did spoon fed like a lot of people recognize with purees. Then I did open cup. My husband actually started doing that when he just started giving him a cup of meat stock, like holding the big mug that was his. And I was kind of shocked by that. But then my son was chugging it. So I was like, okay, this must work. And then it can also be made into anything. So it can be made into a soup. It can be served in a bottle, right? Like a lot of times babies who are used to taking bottles, you can put meat stock in their bottle. That's wonderful for them. Like I said, making it into soups, making it into, sauces eventually. And for your older children, you can cook your grains in it or anything that they're used to having, you can slide some meat stock in there.
Right. Okay, great. One thing that I've been doing a lot lately, and now again, Revy's 9 months, but I'll steam his veggies. So if you're gonna offer steamed carrots, you might as well just steam it in the meat stock. The other thing is because, and I want to talk about fruit a little bit later, but if I'm gonna give fruit, then I'm gonna stew it in the meat stock because at least like, yes, he's getting the sugar, but he's getting it in the nutrient dense meat stock and he loves that, right? That is like an easy go-to. Yeah. And then that's where baby led weaning comes because I love when they just grab. So yes, you either put the jelly down or you can have them grab the veggie or grab the fruit because just all that exploration and the motor involvement is just so great for their brain development in addition to what they're getting inside their mouth.
Exactly. The sensory experience for babies is everything when they're starting solids. It's actually developing the part of their brain that's connected to their personality. So we really want play to be a part of the process. And just because you're using a liquid food as the first food doesn't mean that play is not a part of it. They can splash in it, they can touch it, they can lick it, they can sip it. Sometimes when babies are just getting started, I'll be pouring it back and forth so that they have a visual, and just really integrating it into the whole family as well, I think is very effective. So mom has her cup of meat stock, baby has his cup of meat stock, and you have this really nice start where you're all, sipping your meat stock, slow morning kind of vibe. And hey, if you have to rush out the door, you can put it in a thermos too. I do that as well. It just really becomes the backbone of the nourishment, and then things get stacked on top of that.
Exactly. So that's what I learned from you, Kate, is really the first week to like 4 weeks, it's just like constant meat stock. Add a little bit to the meat stock. Okay, now the next week, add a little bit more to the meat stock. So again, we talk about meat stock because it is the foundation of all of this approach. And again, whether you're serving other foods with it, just keep in mind, mom, like maybe that's the first thing you just try. You make it and you just have it. You either put it in the freezer, or you just have it on hand, and you just start observing what that kind of looks like. And I love it. We may be overwhelmed. Do we do baby-led weaning? Do we do purees? Do we do the 100 food? You can actually do all of that with the GAPS approach. You can puree it into a little puree and feed it, or you can steam it like I do and then serve it like baby-led weaning. Like, this is not about how you're serving it. It's about what you're truly serving that makes it like the GAPS approach. Would you agree with that, Kate?
Yes, so long as that the emphasis really stays on the building foods and the healing foods.
Okay.
Like our main approach with the GAPS nutritional protocol is that we are building the gut first. So we really emphasize what's going to heal the gut and build the body and build the brain and build the immune system. So it does have a lot of emphasis on animal fats. It does have a lot of emphasis on meat close to the bone. We do bring in fermented foods. And so for someone who's never done those foods before, it might feel different or intimidating. But if you have a reason that your baby needs to heal, learning these foods, the cost of, that a little bit of elbow grease, extra effort in the kitchen pays off tenfold. And it's going to start to reverberate out in your life in many ways that you can't see now. That's how healing works. It's a journey, right? And so just take a chance on it and let your body and your baby's body respond, and you can then take in that new information. So you don't have to do everything all at once. In fact, I don't recommend that. It's a perfect place to start with meat stock, to kind of dabble in, to learn more. It's a really great opportunity to learn with your child. And I particularly work with babies who are healing from big things. And so I help moms do that. And the facilitation of that is sometimes scary for them, right? It's like, I'm going out on a limb here, taking a risk. And that risk is often rewarded because no effort goes unrewarded, really.
Okay, I love that. And Kate, I would say eczema is probably one of the biggest concerns you see because it is so common in our infants. And I think when you're a mom and you see eczema in your child, you're just like, what do I do? And especially if you're a mom who doesn't just want to use a cream, a steroid, and it goes away. You really want to understand how to heal. This is how you do this for those kiddos. And then you kind of get over the grossness. Like, I'll be honest, when I was cooking up my first, like with chicken feet, because it becomes so gelatinous, or like putting in the organs, I was like grossed out. I remember my 9-year-old daughter was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying something new. I know this is weird, but like, this is healing. And because I knew it was healing, I just try to get past that. One of my best friends is Chinese, and this is like normal for them. This is not a weird thing. She was so proud of me. She's like, oh my God, Elana, see, this is what we do. This is how we heal. And I was like, yes, I get it. Like, I really do. You just have to kind of get past that. And Kate, the other thing I wanted to mention, because this is a real thing, is when I've been serving meat stock in all different ways, and because fat is so emphasized, it gets so messy. Okay, it gets greasy, there's stains everywhere, it's messy. And that's another thing that I had to get over. I had to just like let go of that obstacle because it can get in my way, and just be like, this is what he needs. This is nourishing. Let him make the mess, let him explore, and we're gonna deal with it because this is what he needs in his body. But you have to have that feeling of confidence, to really just do it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you're talking about so many of the really tricky parts for moms, because just that piece about, touching chicken feet or cooking organs, like that is really a coming home to a way that has been lost. Like, there are places around the world where those intact food cultures are still doing those traditional preparations of foods. And like you mentioned, the Chinese, and I learned this from like Mexican traditional birth workers. And there's references to more tribal communities all around the world who are still doing this with their food traditions. But we're lost here, in America. We have lost, and really, I would say largely in the West as well, what traditional foods used to be just commonplace, acceptance, no big deal, using the whole animal. And so now bringing it back, it's like we kind of have to get over that ick. And I would say that the payoff of that, beyond the children healing, is that we're just more connected to the food system. We're more connected to life and death, because honestly, that is what the local food system, the real food, the going that extra mile really connects me to on a spiritual level. And then the fact that I can see my children and thousands of children now around the world come up and out of these modern chronic symptoms, which, as you know, are 100% reversible. That's the thing that a lot of moms don't know. We are dealing with 100% reversible chronic illnesses that our children are getting younger and younger and younger. And so what are we going to do about it? Are we going to cook chicken feet? Yeah. Are we going to try liver? Yeah, because moms know in their hearts that, like, I'm done trying the other thing because that didn't work, right? And so Yeah, that's really like what my community has become. I get countless messages of people just being like, never thought I'd be the mom,
Right.
dumping the chicken feet. And you can make stock, honestly, you can make a jelly stock without feet. You don't need to,
Yes.
but that's one of the ways that we make a jelly stock is anything that has a joint in it. So a neck, a foot, a shank, the whole bird will make a really good stock. I use heads. Fish heads and fins will make a good stock. A lamb shank is beautiful. Wings will make a really jelly stock. So if you just want to start with chicken wings and make yourself a super jelly stock and then you have that meat to gnaw on or make into a soup, that's perfect.
Right. I appreciate you saying that, Kate, because I just went for the feet because I'm like, oh, this is going to be so great and I can deal with this. But you're right. The next week, I just went for the wings because I made wings that night for the family. And I was like, wait a minute, this would actually make a great stock. So in a small little thing just for the baby, I actually just ended up boiling it, leaving it on the stove for the couple hours, and it didn't even need that much time, and it was such a great jelly. And that didn't gross me out. Everyone's eating these little party wings. So
Exactly. And the chicken feet was kind of a runaway train because where I lived at the time, I had access to a ton of feet. And so I was like having a lot of success just with your saying, like, oh, cool, I'll make Augie's little stock pot with just feet. But then it kind of became like a reputation. People are like, that lady uses chicken feet, And so I just also want to set the record straight that like there's tons of ways to make stock. You don't just need to use feet, but the feet happen to add, even if you're having a whole bird and you throw feet in there or necks, that really can robust up your stock. So one of the ways that we progress on the GAPS diet is we'll do just plain meat stock. We'll add fats, we'll add some brines, which are fermented, liquid, and then we'll puree the collagenous bits either from the paw or from a wing, or it's like this piece of tissue that's not meat and it's not fat. You might recognize that next time you have any cut of meat that's close to the bone, and that's the collagen that we bulk up and robust the stock. We call it blended stock, or I call it a collagen cube. And that is one of the best things you can give your baby, and they're so young and they like to gnaw it, and yeah, it works really, really well. But we progress the meat stock to be more and more healing as we go along.
that's right. If you don't mind, could we just list out some of the conditions that a mom may be experiencing, maybe with her own kid? We already said eczema, but are there other things that maybe a mom would be like, oh my God, my kid has this and this can help? What are some of the things that you're seeing?
Yeah, so eczema, skin issues, any chronic rashes always works really, really well with this. Digestive issues, so gas, colic, constipation, diarrhea. Allergies, so food sensitivities while breastfeeding or food sensitivities that started when you introduce solids, CMPA, CMPI, work with a ton of that. Failure to thrive, so not able to gain weight. I also work a lot with the more extreme allergy spectrum, so FPIEs, if you've heard of that. The GAPS Foundation, Science Foundation, actually did an amazing study on FPIEs, and I have a free FPIEs sharing circle where we talk about that study and just like mom's experience overall. So really any chronic symptom this works for. And
Right.
yeah, like specifically digestive to skin to immune system, chronic infections. Those are the forward-facing ones that I typically work with most frequently.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for making that list. And again, in our membership, we have protocols for all these sorts. I'm always going to just like link it back then to GAPS. Again, if they want food first, this is the approach. And yes, there's homeopathy and there's herbal support. But again, so much of this goes back to gut because gut and the immune system are so linked. Imagine when we can retrain that immune system, heal that gut. You guys, you're giving your child this like robust opportunity to then thrive and continue on. And it's really never too late. Maybe you're listening to this and you have a 5-year-old, or maybe you have like a teenager because you have maybe a baby. This can actually really help them too, with so many things. ADHD, autism. The founder of this had an autistic boy. So
Yeah.
I just think it's so
just
great.
like, I know you share a lot about homeopathy. I also work with homeopathy. It works so well with GAPS, herbal supplements, all of that, herbs, right? Like what you would want to think about is that the diet and the food is the soil. That's the foundation. And so anything that you're putting on top of that, the homeopathy, that's going to be the implement to support the soil, right? But we really want to build that foundation. And so I love to, I got my bag of tricks. I'm going to help my baby get through sicknesses in a natural and a holistic way. But we're also always coming back to that foundation of foods because there's nothing more that can help those other things work as much as actually changing the body and the ecosystem of the body. So that is really really what we do here, and it's fantastic. And for moms, like postpartum, just start sipping your meat stock. If you're listening to this and your baby's not quite on solids, get your meat stock going.
Yes.
It will help your milk. It will support your body. That is a huge piece of what I teach as well.
Yes, absolutely. I always teach the moms, like, homeopathy works so well, herbal medicines work so well, all this natural stuff, but it works so much better when you have that great foundation.
Exactly.
Your resiliency, you're gonna get better faster. This foundation matters. The daily things really, really matter. And again, meat stock is one of them. And yes, if you send your kids to school and they get hot lunch here and there and it's not the best, it's going to happen, but then at least we have these healing foods to know how to repair, because this is life. You're going to go in seasons where it's easier to have very healthy home cooked meals, and there's going to be seasons that are just so busy. Your life just goes on, you're eating out more often, but even eating out, we can actually choose better foods. I mean, it's wild. I just traveled actually to go see my sister the other weekend, and I brought steak. I brought strips of steak in my mason jar. I've never done this with a baby before. Like, I brought my meat stock that I steamed the carrots in and some stewed pears. The fact that I did that, I would have never done that with the other kids. I wanted him to have these nourishing foods, I care that much.
It matters, right? You see the change, and that is a huge piece. I'm constantly talking to moms about like integrating this into the lifestyle, and there's a part of me that is often like really laying it down, the truth of it, because if you're dealing with a serious chronic symptom, it's worth putting other things aside for a period of time, right? Like, we can all make the excuses for ourselves that like, I don't have time, I don't have this, I don't have that to do it. But if you really are ready to heal, this is there for you, and it's worth prioritizing, right? Like, it's worth putting other things aside. And just like you said, you made that extra little step to bring those foods for your baby because it ultimately helps you, right?
Of course,
like,
yeah.
He's going to get all out of whack with his mood and his everything, poops, whatever, while you're already doing a somewhat stressful thing, which is traveling. Travel's fun, but for babies, it's hard, inevitably, just by the nature of it. And so bringing those comforts and that soothing food and those nervous system regulating nutrients and the nutrients that really help with the rapid development that babies are going through, it's peace of mind for mom.
Yeah.
Right? And so I just always blend that, like, it's possible. I mean, we were busting our butts out the door for this last trip with so much going on. And all I could manage was a carton of hard-boiled eggs and 2 avocados. And I had some, like, meat sticks and fermented meat and that kind of thing that were packaged, right? But, like, we were opening hard-boiled eggs on the airplane and avocados because that's all we had. And you know what? It kept my kids busy for like 20 minutes.
I love that. That's great.
A lot of eggs, So it's just like, and people think that is so weird and crazy. And we had another packed lunch situation where someone was like, "Oh, carnivore," and I'm like looking at the lunch. I'm like, it's roast beef and green beans, by the way. So we're just so far beyond at this point, like away from just like packing the old classics. I'm like, I don't really think it's that big of a deal, but I understand that there's a stretch point for that for people. And so honoring that, and also saying, like, if this is, something you want to solve, jump on in, mom, because it's going to give you results.
I agree. And I just wanted to share personally, I've got my 3-year-old who had the eczema is now my most selective eater. I've never had a selective eater before. My other 2 ate everything. They're great. They never had symptoms. It's fine. So she has taught me a lot. And I wish I would have introduced these foods early on, because I don't think it would be nearly as hard. Now that she's 3.5 and she has more of a choice, so she doesn't want this, she wants this. And so I just want to like empathize with moms to know, like, it's never too late, but it's also the perfect time, because it could bite you in the butt later on. And now it becomes much harder. Some of the things that I do with my 3-year-old, and you can tell me, is this the right or wrong thing? But like, I'm trying to slowly get her used to like jelly stuff. So for example, I've started making Jell-O with a gelatin powder. Clearly not as nutrient dense as my meat stock, but she's starting to understand, oh, this is an interesting texture. Oh, I like this. Oh, you're making it with a grape juice. So like it's sweet, but I'm introducing that. And again, I think there's healing properties, but it's like a powder's never going to be as good as the real thing. Okay, bone broth protein. I love Paleo Valley. I think if you're gonna do like a clean protein, it's a bone broth, it's powdered. So I'm like, I introduced that to her, like, okay, let's have bone broth protein. Okay, great, I'll eat that. And then I'm hoping to like keep on moving into, okay, now we're gonna cook your rice in this meat stock. Yes, it tastes a little different, but this is so healing. Do you agree with that as moms are transitioning into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the approach with a picky eater or a more selective eater is so bio-individual, right? Meaning whatever feels best for the family. I think easing into more healing foods, increasing nutrient density is a fantastic way to transition an eater. There are some cases where cold turkey is just like what the mom prefers and it's kind of what the child needs, but obviously that can be a little bit more jarring. And so I would say most people take that route of building nutrient density. Now, one little hack you could do, which I teach in my Picky Eaters course, is you could actually make a jelly stock with feet, no salt, and then blend in the fruit juice, add a little extra gelatin. So she's actually getting the literal stock
It's a
from
great
the
idea.
salt, so like you can do that as well. And like with eczema and picky eating, there is a common denominator, which is yeast. And yeast is something that a lot of people misunderstand. So from the GAPS perspective, we don't go after and just straight up kill yeast, right? We want to actually up-level the ecosystem of the entire body so that the yeast balances itself. So one of the things that happens when we start drinking meat stock is we kill yeast. And that's why my forward-facing public persona, I am talking about going very slowly, because I don't want people to take in meat stock and be like, oh, I'm having this healing drink, and then suddenly all these things go haywire because they're having a die-off reaction. So when it comes to a child, it sounds like your 3-year-old's mildly picky, not too big, but we can have like a big spectrum. Some kids are only on 4 foods, and if we were to just really start pounding them hard with these healing foods, they're going to have a response from their body. Yeast is going to leave their system. They're going to balance this. And so I think that with this kind of, thing that's often tied to behavioral, often tied to huge tantrums, it is easier for moms to like ease into it. In other situations, they're like, let's rip this Band-Aid. We're going to have the worst tantrums for 3 days, but then we're going to coast, right? And so there's a lot of ways to approach it. But picky eating is so much about the gut microbiome and what microbes are present. There's actually, those microbes can send opioid-like structures to the brain. And Dr. Natasha calls them little food addicts, right? It's not really picky eating, it's food addiction. Which, right, might feel a little heavy on your mama heart, like, whoa, that's an intense word to use. But when we think about the microbes and what's controlling the behaviors inside the digestive system, it makes a lot more sense. And we can also have compassion for that child and what they're going through.
I think it's compassion. Yes.
They're not trying to be strong-willed to piss you off, right? They can't actually control what's happening in their system. So we just slowly edge them towards more healing foods. And that's why I say you can prevent picky eating, because you can build the gut and shape the palate, and you have this trajectory where they love all the foods. And I think picky eating is a family ecosystem problem, right? We want to look at the whole family, not just isolate the child, but look at what's going on with everybody. And that's essentially what you're doing, right? You started bringing a meat stock. Your baby was a canary in the coal mine, right? So you're a constant learner too. So you're just like, I'm doing it. I'm going to do the GAPS training.
I mean, seriously, I would. I bet one day I will when I have a little bit more time. I'm fascinated by it because I truly do believe that foods can be healing. And I think that so many kids, especially, they need this foundation. Our world is more toxic than ever. The stress, the schedules, there's just so much that is now pressing on kids that if we could just give them a good foundation, I believe in resiliency. And I agree 100% in healing, reversible illness for these kiddos. And there's work to be done, and it's not standard. It's not our day-to-day. Otherwise, we wouldn't have so many sick kids,
Yeah, exactly. And it expands us for a reason. Like, it feels good. It feels scary to grow, but it also feels so good. Like,
I love it.
Into that edge, right? And just be like, what else can I learn? That's what my son did. I had done the GAPS training, done GAPS intro, like all this thing, and then boom, it's like baby GAPS in my face, like, just needing to help him heal, watching his body change, watching the rashes come up, watching the poops be a wreck, right? Like all of that stuff. And so eventually we just got to this stable, resilient place, and I'm like, wow, you are such a strong, amazing child that I'm so proud of, and you love liver.
I know. I wish it was just more accepted. Like, for example, we have a high school nanny who comes by to kind of help a couple for like an hour or two just to anyway, I'm with the baby. My husband can work out, right? So to help us around. And she's like seeing what I'm feeding Revy. And she's like, what is this? And I'm like, I know it's different. I know it doesn't seem well, but this is healing. So I'm teaching her and I'm excited. She's like, wow, when I have kids, I didn't even think about that. Like people just are turned off by it where the baby's like devouring. And that's the other thing is we need to like get out of the way because I think like adult preference sometimes dictates what we're going to feed our kids. And you're like, whoa, like for example, all of my kids love sauerkraut. They devour it. And I want to go into that next. But I think as adults, we're like, they wouldn't like the sour. Why would a baby like that? Like try to not have those thoughts projected to your child because that will definitely interrupt their interaction and their excitement. We want to be excited. We want to show them how cool this is. We want to make this normal so that they don't think that this is weird. And sauerkraut, oh my goodness, if you could do anything, like one, it's like so cheap to make. It's so easy to make. Now, because of you, Kate, really, I'm finally making it myself at home, which before I was like, why would I ever do that? I'll just buy it. And it seems so intimidating. And it's like the easiest thing ever to make, you know? So let's maybe talk about these brines, these fermented foods, why it's so important for our babies, and how to also introduce that slowly.
Totally. So sauerkraut and beet kvass, those are the main fermented vegetables that I emphasize and we start with. So sauerkraut brine is typically first, and sauerkraut is very high in vitamin C. So it's really awesome for babes to get their vitamin C. So when you're doing gut healing and you're using meat stock, one of the cofactors for collagen to be assimilated by the body is vitamin C. And so when we combine the sauerkraut brine and the collagen from the meat stock, we're getting this like perfect elixir for building the gut and the immune system and ultimately the brain. So sauerkraut, you can make it really simply, really cheaply at home. It's teeming with probiotics. You essentially pound some cabbage with salt, and then you leave it in your counter, put a bowl under it so it doesn't spill everywhere, and close the door so it's dark. 3 to 5 days, you have a short ferment cabbage tonic. You're going to take a little bit of that liquid and drop it into your meat stock, and that's going to be your baby's first introduction to a brine. And we start with the brines because we're giving them the probiotics, we're giving them the nutrients from that food, but they don't have to digest the fiber just yet. So they're just starting with the brines. And actually, even in that kraut brine, there is a little tiny bit of fiber, so it's not completely fiber free. It's just we're not giving them the hard, stringy bits of kraut initially, but they'll get there and they'll be shoveling it in just like you were mentioning. And then beet kvass is another favorite of mine. So it's made with beet, salt, and water. And beet kvass is amazing for the liver. When we're healing the gut and there's that turnover and that die-off that I was talking about, that is a burden on the liver. And the liver's job is to help. It's actually an organ of digestion, so it helps us to digest foods, but it also is a detoxifier. It has many jobs. I think it was like 500 jobs, right? A lot of jobs. So when we support the body with beet kvass, we're helping the liver and the gallbladder both digest fats, and we're giving a little bit of like a lift to what the liver is doing in terms of healing that eczema, bringing down the inflammation in the body, all of that. So the beet kvass is a fantastic one for constipation, any skin issues, reflux. I love beet kvass. It's fantastic. And your baby can start with just a little lick. In between meals is best for the kvass to really support the liver. Given with food, it's more of like a probiotic support. And then they can work up to having as much as they want.
Okay, it is amazing. Beet kvass was new for me, so I made it. At first, I put too much salt; it was so gross, so I had to like redo it. Now it's just delicious. We have just like the beet kvass in the refrigerator, and what I did actually with the beets that were soaking in, I just roasted them and served them for dinner. Okay. Yeah, I was like, can I do that? I probably lose the probiotics because of the heat, but like I'm still eating it because it's so good.
Exactly. So whenever we heat probiotic foods, we do lose the probiotics, but they went through a process of pre-digestion. So for a baby, and a baby especially who's having a hard time with vegetables and in like more sensitive cases, a fermented beet and then cooked is much better than just a plain cooked beet because it's going through a process of like breaking it down. So that was a perfect use of your beet kvass, leftover beets, and then like my kids eat them like pickles, right? They kind of taste like pickles.
Right, so, just right out of the jar without...
Eat them out of the jar, yeah. And then you can also do like a second ferment with them. They're alive, and so you ferment them again, and it's less strong of a tonic. But yeah, beet kvass is like so good for the blood. It's a liver tonic, like I mentioned, and for babies with eczema, and especially babies with constipation, if you're listening, got to get on that kvass, and you can drink it too. It's very refreshing. Like I said, it's one of those foods that I make everywhere I go. We start it on vacation right when we get there so that we have kvass to drink, because people might hear that and think like, oh, that sounds like extra work. But for me, it's taking off some of the work, because like maybe I want to eat something like off my diet a little bit, but then I have that digestive support, that liver support that's keeping me feeling really good. So when I go on vacation, I like to feel better when I leave than when I came.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. And again, look, you can buy sauerkraut. You can buy kvass. You can buy kefir. You can buy yogurt. Like, there are easier ways to do it. And some weeks that's what we do too. And then there's some weeks where I'm able to get on it and I could do it. And I think that's the biggest thing is, as long as we're getting knowledgeable about why we're doing it, you're going to realize that it just ends up becoming part of your grocery list, part of your staples, part of your weekly meal prepping, if that's what you do. And it's so nice to know that they're just there. So what you were saying, Kate, just to wrap this up for the moms, when you're starting solids, you're going to start very slowly. You start with just meat stock. Then the next week we kind of build, and then you maybe add a little brine to the meat stock. And then maybe the next week you start adding a little bit of like a pureed vegetable. And then you're going to add to maybe some of the shredded meat. Like, you're just kind of building week by week until you're at a point where like, baby's doing so well. Let's just mix this all up. I mean, now Revy's 9 months, and this morning he had like kefir with some blueberries, like that can work, or like egg yolk with sauerkraut. You just dump it on the tray and he just like goes for it. It's like, it doesn't become that hard. Like last night we had fish tacos. So I just gave him the fish with avocado. So we ate the fish tacos, but he had the fish with the avocado. Like, it gets easier and easier. But I know he had kefir earlier that day, or he had some sauerkraut or whatever it is. Like, you just know to rotate those in.
Yeah, and I think that while the foods might be different, it's actually very simplifying because they're very nutrient dense. So for me, it was no worry or thought at all if all my son for a meal was having was like a water bottle of kefir. Like, we used to have a bottle that's like, if you're just listening, it's like a 12-ounce bottle, stainless steel water bottle. We'd put the kefir out the night before and he'd like waddle out of bed, drink his kefir, so it just never made me feel like he wasn't getting enough or worrying, is my baby getting enough to eat? Those kinds of questions were never in my mind because I just was offering the most nutrient dense foods. They were so simple. And I was like, if a baby's food can be breast milk at 4 months old, then at 10 months old, like, why can't he have a meal of kefir and a little yolk, right? Like, and that's so easy because you eventually have this rotation of the nutrient dense foods that you put on their tray in different combinations, and you are getting diversity. I mean, I eat seasonal food. That is like a value of our families. I tell my son, like, we're here on Maui right now, and he was like, I really want an apple. And I was like, if we can find a local Maui apple, you're gonna get one. But otherwise, we're not buying one because we want to buy foods that are local. That's our value. That supports the economy. Like, it's better for the body. The food is more ripe. It makes sense. So we did find one, which was really cool. It was like this cute little mountain apple, and it was so exciting, so rewarding. He's like, a local apple, and I'm like, great, let's get it.
I love that.
And in the meantime, the bananas are abundant, the papaya is abundant. So focusing on those values actually makes things a lot more simple in terms of what is my baby going to eat, because it's like, well, he loves liver, he loves butter, let's give some meat stock and call it a day, right?
Right. I love that. Okay, how about some real questions like, my baby refuses this food, right? I put it on his plate. He doesn't want to drink it. He doesn't want the meat stock. Like, can you maybe give us some ideas of what we can do at this point?
Yeah, so remember, meat stock is the healing food. So sometimes our babies are miffing these foods because they're actually feeling the intensity of the healing happening. And so in that case, we really just want to bring it back to a calm, fun, and playful eating environment. I often say, let's switch it up, right? If we're emphasizing these healing foods, go outside, have a picnic. Again, mom and baby healing together. Mom needs to model drinking meat stock. Dad needs to model drinking meat stock. It's not just this thing we're doing to kind of put our baby over here and say, okay, you heal now. No, it's the whole family healing. So just even bringing that tone, and you kind of touched on this earlier where you said, like, don't project that they're not going to like this, because they're absolutely going to hear that. They can hear that either in their sense field or literally they're telepathic, right? Like, these kids know. And so you got to come into this with an open heart, open mind. And another, like, just physical level, they might need some more salt in there. So in the protocol, I say, like, wait 10 weeks, but I often go back on that in individual cases, because Babies typically are undersalted depending on how much salt mom's getting. Maybe mom wasn't even ever doing real salt before this. And so real salt is just an unrefined sea salt or mineral salt. So that would be like your Redmond real salt, your rock salt, your river salt, Celtic sea salt. Those are the salts you need to be using, never table salt or an iodized salt, right? So like your baby could be needing more flavor. They could just need less pressure in general. And so what I do in those cases, I'll put a little meat stock on the counter and then just like swipe it in my baby's mouth. So they're playing, you just do a little swipe. They're like, hey, what was that? And then they're like, okay. A couple minutes later, do it again. And so people think like, oh, they're not taking to this. They're not drinking very much of it. And like, you don't need a lot initially. You need just a little introduction. You need your open heart and your family's dedication to like the wholeness of the healing that's going to happen. And it will take off. It's just a matter of time.
Great. I actually love that you said that about salt, because that's exactly what happens with Revy. If I don't flavor it enough, he's just like, what is this? And then you add salt and you're like, oh my God, sorry, bud. I love salt too. You know, I don't want to like forget about you. But I think that's great. So perfect. I really appreciate those tips. And I have so many questions for you, and I know with time, but this was so helpful. Can I just ask a quick couple rapid fire questions that are like real mom things for me? Because I think it can help other people. Okay, so we want to make meat stock in a way that is probably the most enriching for the food. But I also sometimes I'm like, shoot, I'm in a rush. Can I use my Instapot? Yeah. And so I've done it and I'm like, wait a minute, I see the jelly. So if I see the jelly, does that just mean I did it? Or it's like, no, you really want to get it on the stove and you want to do it the right way. Like, I just want to make this efficient for moms and real.
Such a good question. So from the lineage of the GAPS diet, no pressure cooker would be considered acceptable.
Right. I would assume, yeah.
So that is because we really use like traditional cookware, no plastic, no microwaves, just like we're wanting to cook the stock for the appropriate amount of time. So when we use the pressure cooker, we're shortcutting this and we're doing the meat stock to extract the nutrients for a specific reason and a specific pace. Now, when we use the pressure cooker, some people say, like, for example, a histamine type of reaction, which I didn't list that as a symptom, but if your baby's having histamines, this is exactly the route you need to take. You just have to go at a particular way, which I have a caveat for inside the First Foods plan. But I've heard feedback from people where they're like, when I get the best low histamine stock from my pressure cooker. Other people do a pressure cooker, and they feel like it's worse for their histamine. So again, it's that bio-individual thing. I think it's important for moms to know how to make a proper batch of meat stock as per Dr. Natasha's requirements. And at the same time, if the only way you can get meat stock on the table is to use your Instant Pot, use it. Like, yes, mom, do that. I think that we all want to come to healing situations with our own variables, knowing ourselves, right? And get yourself there. And are you going to come up against a growth edge? Probably. And so then hopefully you expand into something new as well. But don't let it stop you. If you're just like, I can only use my Instant Pot, right? Do it.
Right. Because it's like, once you see the jelly, you're like, okay, hold on. There's got to be nutrients in that for sure. So you kind of get excited.
Of course there is. Yeah. And even a lot of questions I get too is like, my meat stock didn't gel. Is that still nutritious for my baby? Absolutely. It's so nutritious for your baby. You're just going to feed that and really work on getting the gel, because you can get the gel. Trust me, if you're here like, I can't get the gel, you can. Yes. Everyone can. You're not special in asking that question thinking you can't get the gel. You can.
Well, here's another way that I find that I get the gel, but it's totally not in the meat stock way. My kids love chicken thighs, boneless chicken thighs, skinless chicken thighs, and I just bake it, and then the next day it's all jelly, right? That juice. And I was like, wait a minute. This has to be nutrient dense, right? I remember my grandmother at one point being like, you got to skim off all the fat. You need to throw that away. And I'm like, oh, that's the best part. Not only is it so flavorful. So just wondering, in that regard, we're not doing it the right way, quote unquote, but I'm still going to serve that to my family, and I've been. Is that okay to do or not? Again, I'm just learning from you.
Yeah, that's just cooking, right? That stuff on the pan, it often tastes the absolute best. It's so jelly, flavorful, and delicious, and fat equals flavor, right? So That's why it tastes good. That's how we know it's nutrient dense. Liver is the most nutrient dense food on the planet, and it's the most flavorful, right? It is such a unique flavor. And if you've never tried liver, you can now, because you know that it's so good for you. Flavor equals nutrition. And that's what's happened in our world. We have taken those flavorful foods and hijacked our palates with hyperpalatable foods, chemically made foods. And so in a way, it's an intelligence that our body goes towards those hyperpalatable foods, because we know biologically that nutrient density is equated to flavor. But because we have that chemical interception, we become addicted to those foods. And that's a real tragedy for humans. That's kind of how we've ended up here, having to do some backtracking and some healing. So yeah, heck yeah. Like, in terms of the modern human, eating only chicken thighs and chicken legs, that's not going to be enough collagen to heal your gut and to heal your chronic problems, most likely. That's why we bring it back to the meat stock, and we emphasize this as a food, as an everyday food, as a food to go with every meal if you can, even little sips here and there, because we're just boosting that collagen even more. So it's a yes and situation.
Great. Okay, and just to start, what I did to start, and maybe this can help some moms just be practical about it, is I would just buy a whole chicken. And I would take the whole chicken, I would take the gizzards out, I would submerge that in water, and that was the base of the meat stock, because it wasn't gross, it didn't feel yucky to me. And then of course I used all the chicken, but then I had my meat stock. And then I had the liver because it came with it, and I would fry that up in just butter and some salt. Yep. And then I now have the organ, and whether that took him a week to eat or whether that took him a couple days just because he's gnawing on it, it made me feel like I can do this. Perfect. And then I can branch out to maybe bone marrow. I can branch out to like the big shanks or something. And it just was like, hold on, this is not that bad. Like, my mom's chicken soup recipe is like this. So is that like a good way to start for some moms?
And I think that's what most people realize once they start. They're like, oh yeah, this is just real food with no grains.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh yeah, cool, it's meat. And that's why dads often really love it too. Like, people
they like it, yeah.
My husband aboard. I'm like, does he like steak? Does he like grilling? Does he enjoy smoking meat? Like, any of those things are very GAPSy. And so that's honestly how we've just been with it for so long, because it just tastes good.
I agree. And I've always done stews and soups, and I realized, I'm like, that crock pot that I've always been making is actually very much a GAPS approach. This is great. Like, I almost like appreciate my food better, and especially the recipes that I've gotten from my mom and from her mom. And it's like those older recipes that we've carried on, that I'm like, oh my God, this is actually the best recipe for all of this.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that's really what we're reclaiming and what we're gifting to our children, because we're giving them a food lineage. Right now we're lost. There's
we are.
Anything to grab onto. And so by starting our children like this and making your food values, which ultimately become the standards that you live by, it's like your children have direction. And it's not depriving them of anything. It's giving them empowerment in their body so that they can make choices yes and no. They can go out, they can try the thing. They can be 5, 6 years old, have the blue cake. They're going to come home and say, that didn't make me feel good. And you can have a conversation, right? It opens up a door. But if they've never had a chance to have a different baseline, you're not going to have those conversations because we have a normalcy with it, right? Like, and I grew up that way. I grew up sugar addicted, sodas, Captain Crunch. My mom always made a really good Whole Foods meal, but it was like, starch, canned vegetable, meat kind of thing. And so we're just doing stuff different now to get back to like what my great grandparents were serving. And my grandmother was shocked. She was like, Katie, this is what my mom ate. She just loved it. And she was like, I used to eat liver and onions. I love liver and onions, actually, So it's like this remembrance piece for me. And I think I hear that from a lot of moms. They're like, I had no idea this was going to connect me to my lineage. But suddenly, like, I'm feeling my great aunt in my kitchen while I'm cooking, and I'm like reclaiming all this stuff. And it's just like, and it's bolstering us. And it's not only making us feel better physically, but spiritually and all around as well, right? Like, we just feel stronger.
That gives me the chills. I love that. Well, really, Kate, this was so fun. Again, if it weren't because I don't have so much time, I would want to be the expert in your shoes and make courses and teach moms, and I can't do it all. So I would like to refer to you, please. You have taught me so much. I would love if you could just share with moms, where can they find? Maybe they're like, I want to learn more. How do I do this? I want step by step. Can you just make me a video? You have all this. Like, here's what you do. You put in the pot. You put the, How do people find you, and where can they go?
Yes. So Wild Nutritionist is the Instagram. And then on there, you'll see my first foods plan. There's a free starting solids guide. That's a great thing to download. I have a meat stock course, the first foods plan. So that's going to teach you you how to introduce solids step by step. It's a 10-week plan, 12 weeks really. And then you have like foundational materials week by week, all the cooking demos, and then additional information on CMPI, constipation, the symptoms that I really see coming up. So that's a super great place to get started. And yeah, I'm so happy.
That's what I think I took was your baby biome. Is that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, baby biome. Totally. It's called Baby Biome First Foods Plan. And then I have Mama Baby Biome, but we kind of call it First Foods Plan for short just to not confuse people. But yeah, a lot of my stuff is named Biome.
Perfect. So I'll go ahead and put some links down here. We'll figure that out, Kate, between the two of us to just make sure that the listeners have it. And again, even if you're just curious and all you want to do is just start meat stock, it's still amazing. Your kid goes and gets that food dye, whatever, blue cupcake. At least you know you've got healing foods to come to help repair, because life really comes at you. But now as a mom, as a doctor mom, you know what to do for your kiddos to help them become more resilient. And this is what we want for you guys. We want you to have the tools and to feel confident that you could do it. And we know you can. I promise. It may feel overwhelming, but the plan is what helps you find that peace. And that's what Kate and I love to do. We just love to give you that plan step by step so it's not so overwhelming. And we know you can do this, whether it's your first baby, your fourth baby, there's never too late. You could do it. So good luck to you mamas on all starting solids. And please get in touch with Kate or I if you need any support along the way, because we are here as a resource to help you so it doesn't feel that overwhelming or crazy. So we love that. Thank you so much, Kate, for your time. I'm so happy we got this interview in.
Yeah, it was amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.